In the vast reaches of the galaxy, where countless alien species thrive and dominate, there exists one curious anomaly that has puzzled the most intelligent minds across star systems: humans. From the outside, Earth might seem like just another small planet, spinning in the distant corner of the Milky Way, a speck among trillions. But to those who truly understand the intricacies of genetics, biology, and survival, Earth and its inhabitants are anything but ordinary. Far from being a simple world of primitive creatures, Earth has become a symbol of resilience. Humans, often viewed as fragile by some advanced races, have surprised everyone. Over the centuries, Earth's population has fought wars, conquered diseases, and survived catastrophic events, each time emerging stronger than before. But what made them so special? What was it about humans that made them so desirable to so many alien species, especially the powerful and advanced civilizations? In the heart of a gleaming alien research facility located on the massive starship Zephyr X, one of the most influential alien scientists in the galaxy, Dr. Villara, was about to reveal the secrets of humanity's genetic power. Dr. Villara wasn't just any scientist. She was the head of the Zarvian Council's Genetic Research Division, the most respected institution in the galaxy when it came to unlocking the mysteries of different species' DNA. Dr. Villara's reputation had spread far and wide. Other alien species might have excelled in their technological advancements or their intergalactic empires, but none had the genetic diversity of the human race. She leaned over the glowing holographic displays in her lab, analyzing the intricate human genome. Her brow furrowed in awe as she studied the data on the screen. How can such fragile beings possess such strength? She whispered to herself, her eyes glued to the genetic sequences in front of her. Humans, despite their relatively short lifespans compared to many other species, had evolved to be incredibly adaptive. Their genetic code was full of mysteries that made them unlike anything else in the universe. Unlike the genetically engineered, perfect beings of other species, humans thrived in harsh environments, adapting to conditions that would have wiped out most others. They had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and even deadly pandemics. Their strength was in their ability to survive, to change and adapt, to learn from their mistakes, and most importantly, to overcome impossible odds. Dr. Villara shifted her focus to a specific part of the human genome, a gene that seemed to appear only in humans, a genetic marker that no alien species possessed. It was known as the resilience gene. This gene made humans incredibly tough, able to bounce back from injury, illness, or even trauma. Their bodies healed faster, their minds grew stronger with every challenge they faced, and their spirits remained unbroken, no matter how dark the situation became. It was a gene that made them unparalleled survivors, something other species envied. For centuries, alien races had studied the human genome from afar, captivated by their adaptability. But for the Zarvians, it was more than just admiration. It was a need. The Zarvian Empire had been in decline for years. Their population was slowly dwindling, and their genetic pool was stagnating. The Empire's leaders had tried everything: cloning, genetic manipulation, and even hybridization with other species. But nothing worked. The Zarvian people were becoming weaker, their genetic lineage growing thinner with each passing year. They needed a way to save their species. They needed human DNA. In the distant chambers of the Zarvian palace, the ruling council gathered for a rare high-stakes meeting. The fate of the empire hung in the balance. Their brightest minds had been working tirelessly to find a solution, and now they had one. Humans, not just their technology, their resources, or their knowledge, but their genetics. The council had learned about the resilience gene, and they were convinced it held the key to the future of the Zarvian race. The human race, with its strange combination of fierce survival instincts and emotional depth, was exactly what the Zarvians needed. And so, the mission was clear: send their most skilled diplomat and warrior to Earth to secure a human male, to bring him back to their homeworld, and to ensure the survival of the Zarvian Empire. But the question remained: why humans? What made them so important? Dr. Villara leaned back in her chair, her eyes still fixed on the holographic displays. She began to recall something she had read long ago, a forgotten piece of history about Earth. The humans had something other species lacked, a deep emotional connection to their survival. It wasn't just about genes or biology. Humans fought for their loved ones. They fought for their future. They fought because they believed in something greater than themselves. Their spirit of unity and love for one another made them stronger than any other species. And that, Dr. Villara realized, was the key: the human soul. As she pondered the answer, the transmission came through. The Zarvian High Command had made their decision. They had chosen her for the most important mission of her life. She was to travel to Earth and bring back a human male whose genetic material could revitalize their empire. But there was a catch. They needed to ensure that the human would willingly agree. Human males were proud and often difficult to persuade, especially if they felt exploited. The challenge would be more complicated than she had anticipated. Dr. Villara couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement, mixed with trepidation. Earth was a world of mysteries, a place where ancient warriors and modern adventurers roamed side by side. She had never set foot on Earth, but she knew it wouldn't be easy. The human spirit was wild, unpredictable, and stubborn. She would have to tread carefully. On the other side of the galaxy, in a quiet corner of Earth, Daniel was about to become the focus of her mission. A former soldier with a haunted past, Daniel had survived many battles, both physical and mental. After leaving the military, he had settled into a quiet life, trying to escape the chaos he had once known. Little did he know that his life was about to take a drastic turn. He was about to be thrust into the center of an intergalactic struggle, one that would change his life, and the fate of an entire species, forever. As Syra prepared for her journey, the scene was set. Earth, the enigmatic cradle of humanity, was about to become the stage for a new chapter in the galactic story. A story where the human spirit would either be crushed or rise up in ways the galaxy had never seen before. As the starship Zephyr X began its long journey toward Earth, Syra, a Zarvian diplomat and warrior, stood on the bridge, staring out into the vastness of space. The cold, dark void of the galaxy stretched out before her, but she was focused on the mission ahead, finding the human male whose genetic material could save her people. The fate of the Zarvian Empire rested on her shoulders. Zyra wasn't just another soldier. She was part of the elite Zarvian diplomatic corps, trained not only in warfare, but in the art of negotiation. Her beauty, sharp intellect, and fierce strength made her a formidable representative of her people. But this mission was unlike any she had undertaken before. She had dealt with hostile alien species, political intrigue, and war, but never had she been tasked with the delicate job of finding a mate for her people and convincing him to agree to it. Zira had spent countless hours studying human culture, their strange customs, their history, and their emotional complexity. What fascinated her the most was how their minds worked. Unlike the cold, logical minds of her people, humans were driven by emotion: love, hatred, fear, and joy. It was a combination that had allowed them to survive the harshest conditions and thrive in the most unpredictable ways. This emotional depth was something the Zarvians could never replicate, and it was what made them want humans so badly. If she could find the right human, his genetic code could revive her species and restore the power and prestige of the Zarvian Empire. But Earth was a complex, unpredictable planet. It was one thing to read about it in books, but it was another thing entirely to step foot on its soil. The world was filled with billions of people, each one unique in their own way. To find the right human, one who would be compatible with the Zarvian genetic requirements, was no simple task. As the ship approached Earth, Syra's mind raced. She had a list of criteria to look for: strength, resilience, adaptability, and intelligence. She had been briefed on the kind of human traits that would make them valuable to her people, but there was one thing the Council had failed to prepare her for: the unpredictability of human emotions. How would she deal with a human who didn't want to be part of her plan? How would she convince them to come back to Zarvia, to a life they had never known? The thought made her nervous, though she would never admit it. The starship finally descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Syra's eyes widened as she saw the planet up close for the first time. The sight was breathtaking. Lush green forests, vast oceans, towering mountains, and sprawling cities. It was a planet brimming with life, its surface constantly changing with the cycles of nature. Yet beneath this beauty, Hyra knew there was a deeper complexity. Earth was full of secrets, and unlocking those secrets would require more than just intelligence. It would require understanding the heart of humanity itself. The starship landed on a remote, quiet part of Earth, a forest just outside a small human settlement. Zyra stepped off the ship, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth as she gazed around. She had studied the human species from the safety of her ship, but now, in the presence of the planet's raw beauty, she felt something she hadn't expected, a sense of wonder. The air was starship finally descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Syra's eyes widened as she saw the planet up close for the first time. Almost unreal. The sight her mission was to find a human lush green forests, people, vast oceans. But this wasn't just towering a mission mountains, of genetics and sprawling. It was cities. One of understanding. It was a planet brimming with life, with the humans. Its surface constantly changing with the cycles of nature. She had heard about the strength of human will, how they would fight for knew there was a deeper complexity. That's what she needed. Was full of secrets. A human who would not only be strong those secrets would require more than just intelligence. As Syra ventured further understanding the heart of humanity, she came across a small group of humans. The starship landed on a remote, quiet part. They were laughing, a forest just outside a small human settlement. Completely unaware of her presence, Syra stepped off the ship. Her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth as she gazed around. Her eyes locked onto one of the men. She had studied the human species, a tall, broad-shouldered human with dark hair, in the presence of the planet's raw beauty. She felt there was something about him that immediately caught her attention. A sense of wonder. His posture was relaxed, filled, but his eyes were sharp, trees, as if he was always aware of his surroundings, ready for anything that seemed almost. He seemed unreal. Different from the others. Her mission was to find a grounded male, more focused, save her people. This could be the one. This wasn't just a mission. His name was Daniel. Daniel had always lived a life of uncertainty. She needed to connect with the humans. As a former soldier, he had seen the worst of humanity. She had heard about the strength of human and battles had shaped how they would fight for what they hardened his soul. That's what after leaving the military, a human who had tried to find peace in the quiet life of a small village spirit. But as Syra ventured further in, never fully left him. She came across a small group the weight of those memories gathered around a campfire. The faces of those he had lost, talking, and the horrors of the battles he had fought. Completely he wasn't sure if he would ever find peace, but he had learned to survive the clearing. And survival was something. Her eyes locked onto one of the men. That tall, broad-shouldered sat around the campfire with his friends, and a rough, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that there was something about him that immediately the air felt thicker. As if something was about to happen, but his eyes glanced up at the stars, as if he was always aware of his surroundings, the battles he had ready for anything, and the battles yet to come. He seemed different from the others. He had always believed more that grounded, was a fight, more focused, a struggle for survival in a world. His name was Daniel. Makes sense. Daniel had always lived a life of uncertainty. His life was about to change. As a former soldier, he had seen the worst of humanity. The woman who stood in the shadows, conflicts and battles had come shaped his mind, for his genetic strength. But after leaving the military, like the other aliens, he had tried to find peace in the quiet life. There was something in her eyes, something that suggested she wasn't just after never fully left him. She was looking for something deeper. He carried the weight of those memories. Zyra stepped into the clearing he had lost, making her presence and the horrors of the battles. The humans around the campfire. He wasn't sure if he would ever find peace. Daniel, but he had learned to remain calm. And survival was something he studied her all too well. Sensing that this wasn't just another random as he sat around the campfire with his friends, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. Zyra took the air felt thicker, feeling a rush as if something was about to happen. Anticipated. He glanced up at the stars, with countless thoughts drifting to the battles he had fought, and this human was different. He had always believed that life was a fight. He didn't seem struggle afraid, for survival, nor did he seem impressed by her advanced technology. What Daniel didn't know was that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. Her voice smooth and confident. The woman who stood in the shadows, I come from the Zarvian Empire, had come for him. I seek for his genetic strength. Daniel raised an eyebrow, wasn't like the other aliens he had heard about. With what? There was something in her hesitated, something that she wasn't sure she wasn't explain her mission without sounding too forward. She was looking for something but she had no choice. Time was running out for her people, making her presence known. She had to make him understand. The humans around the campfire fell silent as they noticed her. Daniel, however, remained calm, her voice softening. His eyes narrowed as he studied strength to survive. Sensing that this wasn't just another random stranger. Your species. Who are you? We needed to save my Daniel people. Asked. Daniel frowned, but firm. His confusion deepening. Zyra took a deep breath, feeling a rush of emotions he hadn't anticipated. Nodded. Yes, she had dealt with countless diplomats, generals, your people have qualities we can't replicate. Human was different. Resilience. He wasn't intimidated by her presence and strength. He didn't seem afraid. Your people have survived, nor did he seem impressed by her advanced technology or striking appearance. You are the key to our survival. I am the air between them was thick with tension. Smooth and confident. Daniel didn't know what to think. I come from the Zarvian Part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Daniel, but another part of him felt strangely drawn to this alien woman. There was something in her eyes that made him question everything he had believed. She wasn't just a cold diplomat or a conqueror. She had no choice. She seemed to be searching for something more, something that went beyond genetics. As the fire crackled in the background, Daniel stared into her eyes, her voice trying to understand what was really going on. Was this a trick? Or was she telling the truth? Your species. I'm not just a lab experiment. To save my people. Daniel finally said. Daniel frowned, his voice serious. Confusion deepening. I'm a human being. You want my And if you want my help, you'll need more than just my DNA. But it's more. Zyra nodded slowly. Your people have qualities I understand, she said. Replicate. I want more than just your genetics. Adaptability. I want to understand your people. Your people have survived. I want to understand impossible odds. Over the next few days, Zyra and Daniel's relationship slowly began to evolve. It wasn't easy for either of them. Zyra had come from a planet of warriors, diplomats, and highly trained individuals who operated on logic and cold calculation. Humans, on the other hand, were emotional creatures. They didn't think like her people. They reacted to situations with gut feelings, and their decisions were often influenced by past experiences and relationships. To win Daniel's trust, she would need to understand this, how humans interacted with each other, and how emotions played a huge role in their choices. Zyra's mission to save her people from the brink of extinction was still her main priority, but she couldn't deny that something about Daniel intrigued her. He wasn't just a tool to be used in her mission. He was a person, with his own thoughts, feelings, and a complicated past. The more she learned about him, the more she realized that the humans were not as simple as she had assumed. The small group of humans around the campfire had quickly warmed up to Zyra. They were curious about her, but they didn't trust her entirely yet. The idea that she came from another world, with advanced technology and a mission to take a human male back to her planet, was difficult for them to comprehend. Daniel, however, was different. While the others were hesitant, he remained calm and composed. He asked questions, listened, and even offered advice. Zyra couldn't help but admire his strength. There was something about him, a calm confidence in the way he spoke, the way he carried himself. He wasn't afraid of her, and he wasn't trying to prove himself. He was genuine, and that was something Zyra hadn't expected from a human. She found herself drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Zyra found herself sitting across from Daniel, their campfire crackling softly between them. The rest of the group had gone to bed, leaving the two of them alone in the quiet night. Zyra took a deep breath, watching the flames dance in the fire. I know you don't fully trust me yet, Zyra said, her voice quieter than usual. But I need you to understand that I'm not here to hurt you or your people. My mission isn't about conquering your world. It's about survival. Daniel looked at her, his eyes narrowing slightly as he considered her words. Survival? He asked, his tone cautious. What do you mean by that? Zyra hesitated. She had known that at some point, she would have to explain the dire situation her people were in. But she hadn't expected it to be so difficult. The emotions swirling inside her, the pressure of her mission, the growing connection she felt to this human, made it hard to keep her composure. The Zargian Empire is dying, Zyra said, her voice heavy with the weight of her words. We've suffered through generations of war, disease, and internal strife. Our people are losing their ability to reproduce. We've tried everything: technology, genetic experiments, even diplomacy. But nothing has worked. We need the genetic strength of humans to save us. And it's not just for us. It's for the future of my species. Daniel sat quietly for a moment, processing her words. His gaze softened, and Cyrek could see that he was starting to understand the gravity of the situation. He wasn't just hearing her words. He was thinking about them, weighing them against his own experiences. He had been a soldier, a protector, and he understood the concept of survival. But he also understood the importance of trust. "I get it," Daniel finally said, his voice steady. "But you've got to understand, I can't just jump into this. It's not just about saving your people. It's about what happens to me, to Earth, to everything we know. I've seen what happens when things go wrong, and I've lost too much already." Zyra nodded slowly. She understood his hesitation. Humans had been through wars, conflict, and losses of their own. The scars they carried were deep, and it would take more than words to convince them. But Sarah wasn't like the cold, calculating diplomat she had been trained to be. She was learning, slowly, how to connect with Daniel on a deeper level. She wasn't just offering him a chance to save her people. She was offering him something bigger, something meaningful. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly," Zyra said. "But I need you to see that this is our last chance. And maybe this can be something more than just a transaction. Maybe we can work together to find a way that benefits both of us." Daniel looked at her, his eyes searching her face for any sign of deceit. But all he saw was sincerity. There was no doubt in his mind that Zyra was being truthful about her mission. But there was also something more, something that he wasn't sure how to explain. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about survival. Maybe here was a chance for something more, something worth fighting for. Over the next few days, Zyra and Daniel continued to talk. She shared stories about her planet, about the battles she had fought, and about her people's struggle for survival. She spoke of the history of the Zarvian Empire, of how they had once been a powerful race, but had been brought low by their own mistakes. She was vulnerable with him in a way she had never been with anyone before. And Daniel, in turn, opened up about his own past. He told her about the wars he had fought in, the people he had lost, and the scars that would never heal. But he also spoke of his love for Earth, the people, the land, and the life it contained. As they spent more time together, the tension between them began to shift. They were no longer just two people from different worlds with a shared goal. They were starting to become friends, allies, maybe even something more. The walls that Zyra had built around herself began to crack, and she found herself relying on Daniel in ways she hadn't anticipated. One evening, as they walked through the woods together, Zyra stopped and turned to Daniel. The sky above them was filled with stars, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh pine. "Daniel," Zyra said quietly, "I want you to know that I'm not just asking for your help to save my people. I want to understand your world better. I want to understand you." Daniel looked at her, his eyes softening. "And I'm starting to want to understand you too, Zyra." There was a moment of silence between them, a pause filled with unspoken understanding. The fire of their connection, once sparked by necessity, was now something more. It was a bond forged not just in survival, but in something deeper: trust. The days passed, and their relationship continued to grow. Zyra and Daniel had not yet agreed on everything, and there was still much to be done before she could fulfill her mission. But now, they weren't just partners in a survival mission. They were beginning to trust each other, something that neither had expected to happen. Zyra knew she had a difficult road ahead of her, but for the first time, she felt a sense of hope. She wasn't just working to save her people. She was learning, experiencing, and growing. And that, she realized, was just as important. As the two of them stood together beneath the stars, Syra knew that whatever happened next, they had already taken the first step towards something neither of them had expected, a partnership that could change everything. As the days passed, the uneasy calm that had settled over the camp started to feel more like a lie. Clara and Daniel had grown closer, building trust and understanding, but there was always the underlying knowledge that they were not alone in this world. They had come to Earth with a purpose, and that purpose was not just survival. No, there was something much larger at play. Kyra's mission, her people's survival, was at risk, but she had believed for a while that the worst had passed, until the first signal came. It was a quiet day of the camp. The sun hung lazily in the sky, and the humans were working together, fixing supplies and reinforcing their defenses. Syra was with Daniel, helping him with a makeshift communication device they had created. She had been teaching him more about the technology. The air between them was how to use it to defend themselves if things took a turn for the worse. It had been a peaceful stretch of time, one they both had welcomed after the initial chaos of their arrival. But Syra's sharp eyes had always been on the lookout. The universe, after all, was not a peaceful place. Her people had learned it the hard way. There was always a threat lurking in the shadows. And on that day, the shadows began to stir. Syra was the first to notice the anomaly. She had been scanning the horizon through one of the communication devices when a strange flicker of light caught her attention. It wasn't like anything she had seen before. At first, she thought it was a glitch, a malfunction of their primitive tech. But then the signal repeated. Daniel, she called, her voice sharp with urgency. Something's wrong. Daniel turned to her immediately, his brow furrowed in concern. He trusted Syra's instincts. What's going on? I'm getting a signal. Syra said, her voice laced with tension. It's not coming from any of our devices. It's from deep space, far beyond Earth's orbit. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Deep space. Are we under attack? Syra shook her head. Not yet. But it's a signal I've never encountered before. It's too organized, too deliberate. The camp fell silent as the tension grew. The humans knew something was wrong, but they didn't yet understand the full extent of it. Daniel could see the fear in Syra's eyes, the same fear he had seen in the eyes of soldiers before a battle, the fear of the unknown. We need to prepare. Syra said, her voice filled with authority. We don't know who's behind this, but we can't afford to take chances. Daniel nodded, his mind already racing. I'll alert the others. Syra watched him for a moment, her heart heavy. She had hoped, for a brief moment, that they could get through this together without any more threats. But that wasn't the reality they lived in. There were always threats, always forces at work trying to tear apart what they had. As Daniel moved to gather the camp, Syra's mind raced. Who would send a signal like that? What did they want? And why had they chosen this moment to make contact? He asked questions. She turned back to the communication device, working quickly to decipher the signal. Her fingers moved across the interface with practiced ease, but no matter how fast she worked, the answers seemed to stay just out of reach. And he wasn't trying to prove himself. Syra exclaimed suddenly, her eyes wide with realization. Daniel rushed back to her side, his expression tense. What is it? It's a warning, she said, her voice low and grim. A fleet is coming. An army. Daniel's stomach tightened. An army. Campfire crackling softly between them. Kyra confirmed. The rest of the group had gone, and not just any army. Leaving the two this of them alone is the Zarvian Imperial Fleet. Daniel's eyes widened. The same Zarvians you told me about. I know you don't fully trust me yet. Her face pale. Syra said, yes, they are coming to Earth. And they are not here for peace. The sound of the camp murmuring in the distance grew louder as the humans gathered around. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, they could tell something had changed, but no one fully understood the magnitude of it. He asked, they won't stop until they have what they want. What do you mean by that? Syra continued, her voice trained. She had known that my people, They don't negotiate. Explain the dire they situation take. And if they find out that we've been in contact with humans, they'll come for you. The tension in the air grew thicker. Daniel's mind was working in overdrive. He had always known that this situation would not be easy, but he hadn't expected it to escalate this quickly. "What can we do?" he asked. Zyra took a deep breath, collecting herself. "We prepare. We fortify. We fight if we have to. The Zarvians won't hesitate to destroy everything in their path if they think it will save their species." The humans were starting to gather around, looking at Zyra with a mix of confusion and fear. Daniel stood in front of them, trying to calm their nerves. "Listen up, everyone," he said, his voice firm but filled with urgency. "We've got a serious situation on our hands. Zyra's people are coming, and they're not here to make friends. We need to get ready." A sense of dread swept through the group as the reality of the situation hit. They had spent so much time trying to survive and adapt to this alien world, but now they faced a threat they couldn't ignore, one that could destroy everything they had worked so hard for. But even in the face of this new danger, Daniel felt a surge of determination. He wasn't going to let his people be crushed under the weight of this alien empire. They had come this far, and they weren't going to give up now. Not without a fight. "We need to start preparing," he said, rallying the group. "Get the weapons ready. Fortify the perimeter. We don't know when the fleet will arrive, but we're going to be ready." Zyra stood beside him, her gaze distant. Her mind was already working through strategies. The Zarvians were powerful, technologically advanced, and ruthless. But she had one thing they didn't: a connection with humanity. And if she could convince Daniel and the humans to fight alongside her, they might stand a chance. "We may not have much time," Zyra said, her voice steady despite the fear rising inside her. "But we'll fight, and we'll win." The humans began to move, setting to work with a new sense of urgency. The quiet, peaceful days were gone, replaced by the harsh reality of war. But Daniel wasn't afraid. He had faced battles before, and now, with Zyra by his side, he would face this new war with everything he had. As the group worked through the night, preparing for the coming storm, Daniel found himself standing next to Zyra once again, looking up at the stars. The night was cold, but the fire of determination burned hot in his chest. "We'll get through this," Daniel said quietly, his voice full of conviction. Zyra turned to him, her eyes softening for a brief moment. "We will. Together." And as the first signs of dawn crept over the horizon, they both knew that this was just the beginning. The Zarvian fleet was coming, and with it, the greatest battle either of them had ever faced. But they wouldn't face it alone. Together, humanity and the aliens who once saw them as weak would stand united against the threat that loomed ahead. The battle for survival had just begun. The days leading up to the arrival of the Zarvian fleet felt like a lifetime. Every moment was filled with tension, as Daniel, Zyra, and the humans at the camp worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming battle. Every hour was spent reinforcing their defenses, sharpening weapons, and strategizing. The reality of the situation was clear to everyone. The Zarvians were coming, and if they didn't act quickly, humanity would be wiped out in an instant. As the first signs of the Zarvian fleet appeared in the sky, the atmosphere shifted. The once peaceful world that the humans had come to know was now on the brink of destruction. The distant hum of alien warships filled the air, and the ground trembled with each passing moment. The massive fleet was drawing closer, and there was no time left for hesitation. "We don't have much time," Zyra said, her voice urgent as she stood next to Daniel, her eyes locked on the sky. "Once they reach the atmosphere, they'll start their assault. We need to be ready." Daniel looked out over the camp, watching as the humans worked together, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. This was it. The fight they had all been preparing for was finally here. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about saving everything they had built. "What's our plan?" Daniel asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Zyra turned to him, her expression grim. "We need to take down their command ship. If we can destroy it, we can disable the entire fleet. But we'll have to get close enough to fire. We'll need to use everything we got, every weapon, every piece of technology, and every soldier." Daniel nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "And if we can't get close enough, then we fight with everything we have and hope for the best." The sounds of preparations filled the air as the humans continued to work. The makeshift weapons they had crafted over the past weeks were now the only things standing between them and the destructive power of the Zarvian fleet. Zyra had shared what she knew about their enemies, about the Zarvians' advanced technology, their ruthless tactics, and their overwhelming firepower. But even with all that, Zyra believed in humanity's ability to fight back. After all, humans had survived against all odds before. Now, they would have to do it again. Daniel gathered the soldiers, his voice loud and commanding. "Listen up, everyone. The Zarvians are here, and they're not here for peace. We got one shot at this. We need to take down their command ship before they can launch their full assault. Zyra's got the plan, and I'm counting on each and every one of you to fight with everything you've got. If we want to survive, we need to win this fight." The humans nodded, their faces set with determination. It was clear that they weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the future of humanity. As the fleet neared the planet's atmosphere, the sky above them lit up with the glow of alien warships descending from the heavens. The Zarvians were here, and they weren't wasting any time. The first wave of enemy ships fired upon the planet, sending shockwaves through the ground. The humans scrambled to take cover as explosions rocked the area, debris flying in all directions. "Move out. Get to the weapons," Daniel shouted, rallying his team as they rushed to their positions. Zyra was already in motion, her advanced alien technology in hand. She knew that the Zarvians wouldn't give them a second chance, and she wasn't about to waste the one they had. She activated the cloaking device on their ship, rendering it invisible to the enemy sensors as they took off, flying toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The hum of the engines filled the air as the small group of humans and aliens prepared for the battle ahead. The command ship loomed large in the distance, a massive structure, surrounded by smaller warships like an intimidating fortress. It was surrounded by a shield of energy, protecting it from any attack. But Zyra knew it was only a matter of time before they could break through. She had worked with the humans to develop a weapon capable of penetrating the shield, a weapon powerful enough to take down the command ship once and for all. But getting close to the command ship wouldn't be easy. The enemy fleet was heavily armed and well coordinated, and every movement had to be precise. Zyra had trained Daniel and the others in the use of alien technology. But this was the real test. There was no room for error. "We'll need to move fast," Zyra said, her voice calm but filled with intensity. "Once we get close, the shields will activate, and we'll have only a few seconds to fire." Daniel's grip tightened around the control lever as he steered their ship closer to the enemy fleet. The warships around them moved in perfect formation, like a well-oiled machine. But even against all odds, Daniel felt a surge of hope. The humans had always been underestimated. The Zarvians would learn the hard way that they had no idea what they were up against. The ship darted through the sky, weaving between enemy ships, narrowly avoiding blasts that could have destroyed them. The enemy was firing on all cylinders, but Daniel was quick, his fingers moving with precision as he guided the ship through the chaos. "Hold on," he shouted to Zyra as they raced toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The closer they got, the more intense the fire became. The shields of the command ship shimmered in the distance, but Zyra had a plan. She activated the weapon, a powerful energy beam that could breach the enemy's defenses. The energy gathered, glowing brighter and brighter, until Zyra shouted, "Now!" With a blast that shook the very air around them, the weapon fired, striking the command ship's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening explosion, the shield collapsed. The command ship was vulnerable. "Fire again," Vira yelled. Daniel didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger, and another energy blast shot from their ship, hitting the command ship dead center. The ship shuddered as the energy blast tore through its hull, causing a massive explosion that sent shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The command ship was going down, but the victory was short-lived. The remaining warships, furious at the loss of their leader, turned their fire toward Daniel and Cyrus' ship. The skies erupted in explosions, and the small group of fighters had to dodge and weave between enemy fire as they made their escape. The battlefield was chaos, with fire and destruction everywhere. The humans and aliens fought back with everything they had, using their weapons, their skills, and their will to survive. Daniel could feel the heat of the enemy's fire as it passed close by their ship. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he concentrated on evading the blasts. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was racing. This was it, the final push. If they could survive this, humanity would have a chance. If they failed, Earth would fall. "We can do this," Lyra shouted over the comms. "We've taken out their command ship. They're leaderless. Keep fighting." The humans pressed on, their resolve unshaken by the chaos around them. They'd fought as one, determined to protect their home and their future. As the final wave of enemy ships began to fall, Daniel and Sarah took a moment to look at each other. They had done it. The Zarvian fleet was in disarray, their power shattered. The battle wasn't over, but humanity had won the first round. "We did it," Daniel said, his voice filled with disbelief. Zyra nodded, a small smile crossing her lips. "This is only the beginning, but it's a victory worth celebrating." As the last enemy ship fell from the sky, the humans let out a collective cheer. They had fought against all odds, and they had won. Earth's future was secured, for now. But the fight was far from over. There were more battles to come, more enemies to face, and Daniel, Axira, and the humans would be ready. Together, they had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. They had earned their place in the stars. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, its warm light washing over the battlefield. What was once a war-torn landscape was now quiet, save for the soft hum of the machines that still moved in the distance. The battle for humanity's survival was over. For now, Earth had won, but the victory felt bittersweet. The cost had been high, and the war was far from finished. Daniel stood at the edge of the crater, gazing out over the remains of the Zarvian fleet. The sky was still thick with smoke, and the wreckage of the enemy warships scattered across the land served as a grim reminder of the battle they had just fought. But amidst all the destruction, there was a strange sense of peace, a feeling that they had just turned the tide of history. Beside him, Cyrus' figure was a silhouette against the rising sun. She had been the key to their success, her knowledge of Zarvian technology and tactics providing them with the advantage they needed to defeat the powerful enemy fleet. Her once icy demeanor had softened over the past few weeks, and now she stood as a symbol of hope for both humans and aliens alike. "We did it," Daniel said quietly, though the words felt empty as they left his lips. It didn't seem real. Just hours before, it felt like the end of everything. Now there was a sense of something new beginning, something they hadn't dared to dream of just a short time ago. Zyra nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We've won a battle, but the war is far from over. The Zarvian Empire will regroup. They'll send more fleets. But today we showed them something they've never seen before. We showed them that humanity is not weak, that we will not go down without a fight." Daniel turned to look at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. He knew it was true. The humans had fought with everything they had, using the weapons and knowledge they had gathered. But it was Xyra's guidance and the trust between them that had made all the difference. If she hadn't helped them understand the enemy's technology, they never would have had a chance. "Where do we go from here?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Zyra's lips parted, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out over the ruins of the Zarvian ships, lost in thought. She knew that the hardest part was yet to come. It wasn't just about fighting the enemy. It was about building a future. They had to make sure that Earth would not only survive this invasion, but thrive after it. And that meant they would need to form alliances, rally other worlds, and prepare for the long journey ahead. "We rebuild," she finally said, her voice steady, but filled with the weight of responsibility. "We begin to rebuild not just our cities and our defenses, but also our place in the galaxy. We need to reach out to other alien races. We need to show them that humanity is a force to be reckoned with, not just in battle, but in peace." Daniel nodded. He had heard her talk about this before. The universe was vast, and humanity was just one species in it. The Zarvian Empire may have been a powerful enemy, but there were countless other civilizations out there. Some might see humanity as a threat, while others might see them as allies. The key to survival wasn't just about fighting. It was about forging relationships that would help Earth stand strong in the face of future challenges. "We'll need help," Daniel said. "We can't do this alone. We need allies, and we need to find them before the Zarvians strike again." Zyra's eyes softened. "I know, but I have faith in humanity. You've already proven that you can face the impossible. Now you just need to show the galaxy what you're capable of." Daniel turned back to look at the humans gathered around the camp. They were tired, their faces marked with the scars of battle, but there was a fire in their eyes. They had fought hard, and they had won. But it wasn't enough. The war wasn't over. They had to be ready for the next fight. He raised his voice, calling out to the crowd. "Listen up, everyone. The battle we just fought was just the beginning. We've beaten the Zarvian fleet, but that's not the end. We need to stay vigilant. We need to rebuild, to prepare for the next challenge. The Zarvians will come back, but we'll be ready for them. Together, we'll build a future for humanity. A future where we don't just survive, but thrive." The crowd erupted into applause, their voices filled with hope and determination. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was a sense of unity. They weren't just a group of survivors anymore. They were a team that had fought for their future and had won. Daniel turned to Zyra, his eyes full of determination. "We're not just going to survive. We're going to make a future where Earth is respected, where humanity is valued. We'll show the galaxy that Earth is not just a place to be conquered. We are a force to be reckoned with." Zyra smiled, her eyes glinting with pride. "I believe in you, Daniel. I believe in humanity. And I will stand with you, no matter what comes next." With that, the humans began to rebuild. They worked tirelessly, using the knowledge they had gained from the battle to fortify their cities and prepare for the next stage of their journey. The ruins of the Zarvian ships served as a reminder of what they had already overcome and what they still had to face. But there was a new sense of purpose now, a sense that, for the first time in history, humanity had a place in the galaxy. They weren't just another species to be ignored or oppressed. They had earned their right to be heard. As the days passed, Earth's communication systems began to pulse with activity. Ships from across the galaxy responded to the human signals, offering aid and alliances. Some were distant relatives of the human race, while others were entirely new. But they all saw what humanity had done. They saw the strength, the bravery, and the determination that had led Earth to victory. The war was far from over, but Earth had already taken the first step toward its future. The next phase of their journey would be difficult, but they weren't facing it alone. They had the galaxy's attention, and now they would work to build alliances with those who shared their vision for peace, unity, and prosperity. Zyra stood by Daniel's side as they watched the first of the Allied ships descend toward Earth. It was a symbol of the future they had just begun to build, a future where humanity was no longer a small, insignificant species on a tiny planet, but a force that would shape the future of the galaxy. "This is just the beginning," Daniel said, his voice filled with hope. Zyra nodded. "A new dawn is rising." As the ships landed, the people of Earth stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had fought for their survival, and now they would fight for a future they could be proud of. The galaxy was vast, and Earth was just beginning to explore it. But now, with new allies and a renewed sense of purpose, humanity's place among the stars was assured. The battle for Earth was over, but the real adventure was just beginning.